Thanks, Richard. So I'm Rowan Luckie. I'm head of e-commerce for Radley & Co. I joined actually about 4 months before we replatformed, and it's been quite a journey kind of since that time. Really, when I joined the business, Radley had quite a kind of siloed approach to e-commerce. It was its own separate entity, didn't really kind of connect with other areas of the business, and there was a huge opportunity going into the replatform to actually look at the way that we structured e-commerce, looked at the way that we kind of pulled in data from different areas of the business. So the kind of three objectives that I approached the project of replatforming was to address data integration across the whole retail portfolio, but also understand how our customer interacted with the website, what kind of enhancements we could make there, looking at kind of the devices that they use and how they really kind of want to shop the site. And then we also addressed the off-site customer experience. I think Alan mentioned earlier, when you're a kind of a luxury brand, customers used to going into store and touching and feeling the product, and trying to emulate that experience on the website is an added challenge. So we really tried to understand what the kind of motivation of the customer was when they came to buy into the brand, and how we could deliver that in terms of our service proposition and our knowledge of the product to the customer. So I suppose the starting point to understanding and building that journey was to really understand what the customer was doing, and the only way that we could get to that was to build this single customer view. So that was our key objective from the outset. I think I mentioned the kind of the background was that we had quite a rich data from our existing e-commerce platform, but that didn't connect with anything that our customer was doing off-site. So any transactions that happened within our retail portfolio, we didn't know about, and we didn't connect the customers together. And that was really from a kind of a structure of the business. The entities were kept separately, and we didn't pull anything together. So we took the opportunity to really connect the different areas of the business and build that single customer view. We also looked at how the customer interacted across platforms. So we saw the opportunity in mobile that the customer was really trying to research their product before they went into the store, and our old website didn't allow the customer to do that in a particularly rich or sophisticated manner. So a key objective was to make sure that our site was responsive, and that it was future-proofed for future growth. So we really looked at kind of what multi and omnichannel would mean for Radley as a business, and try to address where the customer purchased, whether it was in store, whether they were researching before going to store, or whether actually they just wanted to shop online. So we went through a kind of a fairly quick process in terms of trying to understand what platforms were out there. As I said, we had four months really before we needed to kick the project off, and we spoke with Session Digital, and we looked at a number of different e-commerce platforms, and we decided to go with Magento Enterprise because out of the box it actually served quite a lot of the purposes that we needed, but also it was a flexible platform that was kind of scalable for mobile, allowed us to tackle international expansion, which is something that we've really needed to address as a business. And it had a solid reputation for growth. We've really scaled the business in the kind of the last 2.5 years, and it needed to be capable of that growth. Another kind of the beauty of Magento was that because it's open source, we weren't tied into any particular agency. So we did look at a few vendors, and glad that we spoke to Session, because actually what we've been able to do with Session as an agency is tap into their various strengths across different areas of expertise. And they've really given us the kind of flexibility that we've needed as a business to grow. So when we approached Richard, it was really about understanding what expertise we could pull in from Session, how we could develop the platform in the most agile manner. And Session actually helped us re-engineer quite a lot of our business processes. So we've got, and we still do have, some fairly archaic systems in our EPOS tilling system and our warehouse management systems. But through bringing those together, through re-engineering many of the business processes with Session, we've actually been able to develop a fairly agile infrastructure now, and are able to do a lot more than we would have been had we not re-engineered those processes. And the kind of the sole objective of that was to try and pull everything into a single point, so that we've built the foundations now for moving towards a more omnichannel approach. I wouldn't say that we're completely there yet, but we've spent quite a lot of time in layering that those systems together, so that we actually do now have a bit more flexibility and can start to develop our omnichannel approach. So what does a single customer view really mean for Radley? I think we're still a relatively small retail portfolio across the UK. We've got 33 stores, so we don't have the kind of the far reach of many high street brands, but we have tried to be clever in terms of the way that we collect data. So we use the web, our retail stores and our outlet channels to really start building in this profile of the customer. And we know that she shops across all of those different channels. She may not transact in all of them, but she'll certainly browse and do her research before she comes in to buy. So we've worked really hard with our store staff, trying to get them to understand the connection between what happens online to what happens in store. And now 50% of all of our transactions that happen in store, actually the customer will willingly sign up to our database, and we append all of her transactions to any other transaction that she makes across the business. So we're building up this rich picture of what our customer does and how she interacts with the brand. So our EPOS, our tilling system data, is pulled into our web data, and we match up the customer based on their email address. And with that, we pull in all of the transactional data. So once a month, we do a deep dive into what the customer's done. And we're really starting to build up kind of the RFM profile, recency, frequency, monetary value, to understand who our most affluent and active customers are, but also who hasn't shopped with us for a while and who's most likely to lapse. And we're starting to build into our email communications life cycle marketing, which for many people is probably a kind of a bread and butter. But actually, for Radley, we've not been in a position to do that. So now we're getting much more sophisticated in terms of understanding when and how we need to communicate with the customer after they've made their first purchase. And that alone can't be done through just looking at web data. You really need to understand what she's doing when she's offline as well. So really we're at the beginning of our journey on to omnichannel, but we have got those kind of foundations now in place, and we do understand a lot more about what the customer's doing across all of our channels. Radley as a brand is kind of it's actually a relatively young brand. We started in 1998 and were developed by a lady called Loelle Harder, who is absolutely passionate and fanatical about the quality and the craftsmanship of the product. And that really comes across when you're in our stores. Our store associates know about the product, they know about the leathers, they know about the construction of the product. And our design team are very focused on the practical elements of the bags, but also making them beautiful and quite a statement kind of. We're a very colourful brand, so it's all about the emotional connection with our product, and that's very easy to achieve in store. It's less easy to do online because what we found is that previously we've always had a one-way communication. We've always kind of told the customer what we sell and what we do, and then expected them just to buy into it. And I think the shift that we've made through replatforming was to actually start listening to the customer and to really understanding what motivates them. So it's quite a basic tool, but we introduced FIFO for our customer reviews, and a lot of sites pull in customer reviews for kind of endorsement on features of a product. And for handbags, it's quite different. You don't buy a handbag because it's got 3 pockets and a strap that's quite comfortable to carry. But you do want to understand the slight nuances, that it's really soft and that the colour was really vibrant and beautiful. You want to hear that from other customers. But you also want to know from a website that you can trust them and that the product's going to reach you in a reasonable amount of time and that you're actually going to have fantastic aftercare service if it's not quite what you wanted. So we really started to use FIFO and use our customer feedback through analytics, through reviews, through MVT studies to understand what the customer was telling us. And that's really helped us to address kind of certain pinch points with the customer. So understanding that next day delivery was really important, that actually it was important that when our courier texted the customer and said that they were going to be there within the hour, that we delivered on that promise, that when the product arrived it was beautifully boxed, that it wasn't squashed, that the product didn't get damaged. We listened to customer feedback and we changed our packaging. We changed our gift wrap because customers didn't want the logo to be on the front. They wanted to have something that they could give which was unbranded. So all of these slight kind of simple things actually we've managed to improve through understanding what the customers were telling us, and have as a result managed to reduce our returns rate. We've increased customer retention, and we've really started to drive conversion through the website. And we see through what the customers are telling us that they're really starting to kind of to have more trust and more confidence, and they want to come back and shop with us directly as opposed to through one of our stockists. And it's important to say that we're stocked in John Lewis and House of Fraser, so we are up against, as a brand, we're up against some of the best of breed online retailers. I'm going to get some water. And the John Lewis's and the House of Fraser really know what they're doing. They really understand their customer, and they actually have a fantastic proposition. So we need to go above and beyond that as the brand to help them. Another thing that we did was actually look at Onsite, how we could improve the experience for the customer when they were on the website. So one of the things you can do when you're in a store is pick up a bag, turn it around, look inside. So we try to address some of those issues, looking at product photography, introducing 360 videos so the customer can really view all aspects of the product, and layering in product recommendations, you may also likes. So we've really tried to kind of fill out the customer journey whilst they're on the website. And this is slightly embarrassing, but this is what our website did look like in 2012. I think one of the key issues we had was we didn't have areas where we could layer in that rich content. So we tried to stuff everything into the homepage. We've really tried to kind of pull that out and layer in the information throughout the journey for the customer without having to add in extra clicks and bulky kind of content sections. We really try to layer that into the content pages and make it quite a seamless journey for the customer. So avoiding this kind of disjointed, limited shopping experience. And this is how we look now, which maybe doesn't feel like a kind of a vast difference, but actually as a brand we've done a huge amount of MVT testing, usability study, eye tracking, looking at how our customer interacts with the website to really refine the really important points in the customer journey. So we've tested search and navigation, we've tested homepage layout, we've tested our mega menus when they drop down. Do we include photographs? Do we include images? Do we include text? Should we have promotional messages in there? And we've really tried to understand what the customer wants when they come onto the website. We've also added extra tools, so our customer service team can take over a consumer's basket if they get stuck in the process and they phone up and need assistance. They can pick up what the customer has in their basket already and complete the checkout for them. And we've added service propositions, so click and collect is now a very easy process through our website to find and select your store and complete the purchase that way. As I mentioned, click and collect, we don't have the kind of the retail portfolio coverage as many brands do. We've got 22 full price stores that we serve with click and collect. But actually, our click and collect sales account for 8% of the e-com business, which, when you compare to a John Lewis, doesn't sound like a significant proportion. But actually, when you think that's going to 22 locations throughout the UK, it's actually a huge amount of volume. And there really is an appetite from the customer that they want to have that convenience of being able to collect their parcel when and where they like. And we are looking at ways that we can expand that. But one of the features of having a very simple click and collect process through checkout where a customer can find their closest store has really helped to drive that. And it's benefited the connection between the website and the stores, because the stores see footfall being driven through the click and collect proposition. In addition to click and collect, we also took the opportunity to add more shipping options. So when I talked earlier about re-engineering our business processes, that allowed us to be faster and more efficient in our warehouse. So we can now offer next day, name day delivery, more international sites, and a Saturday service. So we're trying to give the customer more choice, and that's all through listening to feedback, and then re-engineering and adapting the way that we work as a business. We've also improved the returns process. So when a customer returns something to us, it's a much quicker turnaround. And again, from that data, we look at why customers have returned items to us and are really starting to try and hone the product information that we give and the photography so that we're addressing that. And we have started to kind of chip away at our returns rate and improving that year on year. So I suppose the kind of summing up is actually using the richer customer data. We're really starting to improve our marketing and our service proposition. So we're understanding what the customer wants when they start to connect with us. This is a kind of an example of our welcome email and some of our direct mail communications that we send out. We're listening to what they do, on what they want, and honing that life cycle communication with our customer when they want to be communicated with. And the teams now have kind of a clear view of what the customer wants from us and when we should be communicating with them. So even outside of the e-commerce team, our creative services team are starting to understand how the customer interacts with us, because we share all of this data through the business. And really, to sum up, I think the proof is actually in the pudding, really. We've managed to increase new customers by 43% in the last year, but also we've increased what was already a very loyal returning customer base by 14%. And that's through really kind of laying these solid foundations and understanding what motivates the customer so that we can start driving conversion better. And that's it.
Fantastic. So thank you very much, Rowan. That was very interesting indeed. Before I open it up to the floor, I was wondering, obviously we've gone on quite a journey and you've achieved an awful lot in a relatively short amount of time. I guess my question, being an interested party, what's next?
Well, we're really trying to focus on personalising the experience. I think we now understand a lot more about the customer, but we're still kind of tackling the customer in a fairly macro approach. So we're now starting to drive through more personalisation on the website, tailoring the experience so that we're not kind of a one size fits all. I think Amazon obviously do it incredibly well, and we see returns through personalization in email and retargeting, but we need to kind of feed that back into what we present on the website now, and make sure that that journey is as seamless as possible.
Yeah, and so the feedback you get from customers from this richer kind of engagement is clearly yielded benefits over the last couple of years.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we've really seen kind of our review ratings go up. The customer feedback is actually becoming less frequent because we're getting fewer complaints into the customer service team, and actually we really look at our interaction rates and try and understand fewer touch points with the customer is sometimes beneficial to us as a brand, and indicates that actually what we're doing well.
That's great, thank you. Does anybody have any questions at all? Yeah, thank you. Hi.
Just a quick question. When you went, you all know that the Marks and Spencer's new website didn't really work out because they felt that the Marks and Spencer website didn't really work out because they felt that existing customers didn't really get the new concept and design. How did you guys make sure that this didn't happen to you when you went from your old website to your new design? Was it just testing, or?
Well, we look at three things. We look at our analytics, and we make sure that we understand what the customer's doing on the page, how long they spend, what our bounce rates, our exit rates are, kind of the simple, basic analytics. But we also do a kind of a 2-weekly cycle of MVT testing. So we're continually trying to improve the web experience. And that will be from testing the homepage. It could also be testing the color of a button. We'll test MVT landing pages as well. So we really try to see how the customer interacts. And then as a business, we take a day out kind of once or twice a year to do a full deep usability study where we'll actually go to the lab, have people testing, and we eye track, we look at how they're interacting with the website. And we use that to form kind of the basis of our MVT program. So we do that on the desktop site to understand how the customer interacts, but we've also recently done it on the mobile responsive version as well. And it's fascinating because some of the areas that you think are quite seamless or are very important to the customer are actually they're not interacting with. So it was quite interesting to look at mobile through our usability study and understand that the content areas were less important for the customer there. However, we know on the desktop site, actually, the content areas are really important, and they start feeding into the kind of purchasing behaviour. So, understanding how and when the customer interacts with your site and how they want different things at different times is kind of driving this personalisation requirement for us and helping to refine the site.
Any other questions? Lady down the front.
Hi.
I just have a question about the single customer view.
Yeah.
And what was your biggest challenge in terms of which data to put in? And also you mentioned sort of like archaic ecosystem.
Yeah.
And Appleton Brands were quite an old retailer.
Yeah.
It started in 1973 and we have over 150 stores. And just wondering what was the biggest challenge?
Yeah.
Behind it?
Well, Radley started out as a wholesale business. So our systems and infrastructure was built around being a wholesale retailer. And then it's kind of evolved as we've built stores, so bits and pieces have been bolted together. So our back office system probably wasn't as flexible as we wanted it to be. And when we re-engineered the platform and the processes with Session, we decided to change the business structure and actually feed the e-commerce data into our slightly older EPOS system. So it's maybe not the approach we would have taken if we were looking at everything kind of brand new. We may have had like one system that served all purposes, but we had this existing system that we didn't have the budget to overhaul. So our web data feeds into our EPOS system, which is how we collect the single customer view. So when a customer's in store, their customer record is on that system, and it will be on that system from the web data. And then the store staff can start appending transactions to it, and then that all feeds through into this kind of single customer database. And I guess to answer the question about the challenge is really motivating the store staff to complete that journey and to connect the transactional data to the customer. And that we've done through KPIs, through really interacting. Our customer service team goes out and we have customer service champions in our store, so we really try to kind of connect the two and make sure that the benefit is understood. Yeah.
Great. Well, one more. Yeah.
Hi.
Implementing systems is tough for anyone. With hindsight, with lessons learned, is there anything that you would have done differently?
I think we were quite lucky actually when we replatformed. We've replatformed in 3 months, so
just under 12 weeks.
And I think we had to be very kind of regimented in terms of what we could achieve in that period of time, because we knew that we had to go live for peak. So it was understanding the priorities, not trying to do everything at once, and that's why I say we're really still evolving, and we work with Session on an agile basis. So it's a continual improvement, and I think we don't ever expect to do one thing and then build it and it's solved and that's kind of job done and now all we have to do is trade. Part of we're a relatively small e-commerce team. We're 10 people, 4 of which are customer service. So we have relied heavily on partnering with Session to build out the capacity when we need it on a project basis, but also building the flexibility within the team so that we can use MVT tools, we can kind of tweak things and be a bit more agile to improve the process and the experience.
Yeah, I guess from our point of view as well, just having the capability to focus on what's most important next, and that's the value of being slightly more flexible, slightly more agile. It means that you don't think too far ahead. We have a long roadmap, everybody has a long roadmap, but it changes every single day. So from our point of view, we look at a very short window of time in front of where we are today against a wider roadmap and implement the highest value thing that we can do for the budget and the time available. And as Rowan said, we had to get this in pre-peak. And so we had to make decisions about how big the scope was, how many systems we integrated with, what it was all about, because the goal of going live in peak was far outweighed anything else that could come at a later date. So I guess it's understanding that roadmap and what's of real value today to implement is how we approach things.
And I think to reassure people, we have a kind of a backlog of tickets that are nice to have, and we look at reprioritising those. There's probably still a handful of tickets on there from when we replatformed, but what we've actually decided is that business objectives and other tasks come ahead of that they stay on our roadmap, and we will probably, hopefully, get to them one day, or actually the technology will have moved on and we'll be having kind of some virtual reality website. But we really do try to just keep evolving and try and stay as ahead of the game as we can, and just continue improving.
Any more for any more? Okay, thank you very much for your attention. Thank you, Rowan. Fantastic.